Welcome to the ShowShow with your host, Uncle Wobbly. I'm Uncle Wobbly. What's this thing? Alright. So, the thing with the show is that I'm a fuck up. And I should be applying for jobs and chasing my dreams with various important creative endeavors that I've put hours of work into, years, or hanging out with my awesome friends before I die. But way too often, I procrastinate, and I just sit around and watch movies and TV. And so I thought that if I made a show on the internet, it wasn't very good, that no one was ever going to see, but where I reviewed the stuff I watched, it would feel less like the time waste it really is. So that's what this is about. The premise of the show, it's pretty simple. It's really not very original. It's a show where I review shows. I review them, and I rate them, and I meditate on them. And by shows, I mean movies and TV and anything like that. It's on the screen, and you don't get to interact with it. It's not a video game, so it's just a show. Because it could be like a program or an application, as they call them now. But no, this is just shows. So my methodology here is I just sat around and made an IMDb watch list. IMDb.com is a great site of all kinds of shows that I knew I should watch. There's so many of them. And then I just made a random generator, or I went to a random number generator website thing and just picked one at random. And so it's a weird one to start, but it's the television show Justified. And why it's on the list, I don't know. Someone I thought told me it was good. It's got a cowboy and looks really stern and kind of like Justice-y and Johnny Cash-y, like a dark, tragic hero, and that always appeals to me. Also, it sort of seems like a slick, kind of modern attempt at a reimagining of a western-y thing rather than being faithful to any western-y genre tradition things. And something about westerns just kind of makes me thirsty. So I'm hoping that it's not too old in its sensibilities. I get really mixed up by another show I haven't seen called Longmire. For a while I thought they were the same thing, but they're not, so I'm going to start with Justified, and maybe the random number generator at some point will let me watch Longmire too. And I'm just using the IMDb's rating system, so it could score anywhere from 1 to a 10. Alright. I guess... Oh, and I don't know how much I have to watch before I feel like I can rate it. Obviously not the whole thing. So I think probably like about a movie's worth, maybe 2 episodes. I'll feel it out as I go. But I'll see you soon. And now a segment symbolizes me watching the TV show. Justified. Well, first off, I want to apologize for that last clip. My cameraman, a fuck up. So, the show, I watched it. Well, I watched the first episode. Now, I promise, usually that's not going to be enough for me to consider myself done with a show. And I did due diligence. But, as you might have guessed, I didn't like the show. It wasn't a very good show. That's why I only watched one episode and don't want to watch anymore. But the due diligence I did was I got on IMDb and I poked around and I looked at a bunch of episodes. It's very highly rated, the series, on IMDb, but I think that's users, so of course it's crap. But I poked around and saw if, like, maybe in later seasons the episode ratings go way up, or if they stay pretty consistent. And I went and I read a bunch of user reviews on IMDb, and which I didn't do any of that beforehand. I wanted to keep myself virginal, like a marriage. But so I did afterwards, just to make sure that I wasn't missing something. Because, you know, sometimes late in a series, it suddenly gets much better, or they bring in some awesome character, which just changes things, or it suddenly gets better, as in Star Trek Next Gen Season 3. Just suddenly it clicks. It's so much better. But it doesn't look like that's happening. Everyone who loves that series loved it from the get-go, and loves it consistently all the way through. And so now I'm just going to start talking about why I didn't like it and why it wasn't very good. I feel like the first episode was that I'm pretty justified in judging the whole series by it, if you'll pardon me. So, first off, I did kind of like some of the visual stuff. I liked some of the palettes or lighting they did for a little while in scenes where they were trying to, like, be cool. But then when the story started moving really fast and they just start having to, like, have scenes for the sake of moving the story forward, the lighting and the visuals just turned to shit. But they, like, when they were trying to impress you, especially like the big opening thing, is the colors palette was really cool. It was like light, whatever. But fuck that shit. I mean, it's not a big deal. For the most part, it looked terrible visually. It was like it looked like Walker Texas Ranger or something equally shoddy. And I'm not even crapping on Walker Texas Ranger here. I mean, I think it probably has some kind of value, but, like, it wasn't, like, you know, well done visuals. Randomly, since I'm talking about Walker Texas Ranger while I'm talking about Justified, Walker Texas Ranger was really good about explosions. Their stunt team kicked ass. This one had an explosion, and it was so stupid and dumb looking, and they ignored the laws of explosion. They had, like, a crowd of people around the explosion, and the explosion happens. It's like something like a military missile or something, and, like, people 2 feet away are just fine. But whatever. So, first of all, I should probably give a synopsis or something, but it's too late because we're past firsts, so I'll just give one now. The synopsis, I thought it was going to be, like, older or something. It's like some guy from Kentucky who's a badass. He's a badass cop dude. He's in the ultra slick and urban world of Florida somewhere, if that makes any sense. And he's a hot shot, and then he fucks up in classical badass action star fashion by killing someone who he wasn't supposed to, in, like, in a grandiose, bravado-y kind of way, and his wormy little supervisor's like, "Oh, guy, you did it. You weren't supposed to. Oh, it's a mess. It's a shit show. And so you have to go back to where you came from. That's the only place you can go. I'm transferring you." And so he transfers him back home to Kentucky. And this is where I think it was a bad
writing idea mistake, but it touched on something really interesting to me. Was so this character, the central character, it's about him returning home from being sort of a badass city slicker, but not really, to going back home to small town Kentucky, where he has to mete out harsh justice because for some reason everything's terrible and dark there now, and he's an urban badass. Here's the problem: whenever he's like away for his little origin story in the beginning in this like whole city slicker world, he's swaggering around in a cowboy hat, quick drawn, and being a badass cowboy from a cowboy state like Kentucky. And there are better cowboy states, I know, but Texas. But he's supposed to be like the cowboy in Florida, and like that's the way he plays it. But then he has to go back to Kentucky. He's like, oh, I don't want to go back to Kentucky, which can't argue with it there. Then he goes back to Kentucky, and it's like, oh, that city slicker from Florida. Even though the entire time he's walking around like fucking John Wayne or something. It's just, like, who is he? Is he, it's like everywhere he goes he has to have some other shadowy origin story that's not there, and no one knows him because the other half of his coin, except like the other half of his coin is pretty much the exact same thing. Like I'm not, the concept seems flawed, but I did think it touched on subtlety I found in my own life, that like whenever you're from somewhere but you leave, whenever you go back, you're from the new place to the old people, and whenever you're in the new place, you're from the old place to the old people, which I've always found perplexing. But so that's the character doesn't make sense, and of course he's like the strong silent type, dark badass, blah blah blah. But he's too busy being snarky. It's got kind of like Walker Texas Ranger syndrome. It's like written for people who want strong badass characters who always look awesome and are in control, and it's like he doesn't really have flaws, but instead they just give him like darkness wrinkles, and usually the darkness wrinkles don't make any sense and there's really not a lot of foundation behind them, but whatever. But for the most part, he just walks around and people set him up with their dialogue. They say things and they're all kind of like real kowtowing to him, and he's sitting back silently waiting for the occasional time to like say something that makes him look super in control and clever. So that annoyed me. And then like the best actor in that thing, he's like the bad guy. They've got this crazy little guy who looks like Trevor from Grand Theft Auto 5. He's like he's like head of the Ku Klux Klan there or something like that. And he's like best friends with the good guy, sort of. And he's a really charismatic actor. Actually, he's in Django Unchained. He plays the kind of something Crash or something. And I like the actor. He was sort of the best thing there. But like the plot is just nonsense with him, and the Nazis run around just killing people randomly. Apparently, this guy coming to town somehow makes it where everybody doesn't think anything about murdering people. The good characters just commit murders, and there's like legal paperwork they have to clean up for just murdering people. And the bad guys, they're in the streets with machine guns in small town Kentucky, which, you know, we're supposed to believe is the simple place where our city slicker hero badass is coming back to and to be bored by or something. We saw a grenade launcher and machine guns in the hands of the bad guys just casually, and no one even like bats an eye. It's like, oh, rocket launcher. And like, of course, they want to go for like, we're creating a gritty, realistic scene of the people and the values and how things really are, and they achieve it quite well. There's some actress, I didn't look up who she was, but she plays like a girl She's like a white trash chick, and I could tell you she's like in a trailer. They got that scene really well. She did a great job, and she's costumed really well. She brings that whole scene to life whenever she's in her trailer, and the whole trailer setting was really good. It felt authentic. It stuck out like a sore thumb because nothing else did. But other than that, it's like they're hiding behind this veneer of like, we're giving you real dark grit Kentucky and the real issues that are there. And so they do like real ham-handed kind of race stuff. But it's like there are white supremacists tattooed in swastikas, and they're not even dropping N-bombs. Maybe that's like a network thing. This was on FX though, so you would think that the white supremacists with grenade launchers and machine guns would drop at least a few N-bombs just for verisimilitude, but they didn't. Instead, it was like the good guys are all racially enlightened, and the bystanders are all racially enlightened, and the only ones in this small Kentucky town with apparently a huge, like poverty, poor black district that they bemoan or something, the only racism in the whole thing are from the guys with swastika tattoos. Everyone else is like, you go girl, to the token black cop character. So like, there's no realism there, but it's not stylized. If you don't do realism, you need to do stylized to like, I mean, it's like, why are you leaving the realism behind or failing to like create realism? Is it because you're going to give us something else that's equally entertaining or valuable? Or is it because you're incapable of creating something with any verisimilitude? So I didn't like it very much. The main character seems like a pale knockoff of the future character from Firefly, the lead character there. What was his name? Captain Archer or whatever. Maybe I'm getting my lines crossed. But whatever his name was, the captain on Firefly, he is everything that this justified cat wants to be, except he also flies around in a spaceship, and his problems are real. I mean, for a guy in a spaceship. So yeah, if you want your rugged, awesome, badass dude, if you want this character, go to Firefly, and it's better there. Is there anything else to really say? It seems kind of appropriate that such a crappy, minor little show is like, why? Or my first review here. I'm going to stick with this. I wrote some notes down a little, but then I got tired of that because, fuck that. Oh yeah. Cool thing, and this is just tangential because this is just a specific thing from one episode of an entire series, which I just reviewed, even though I'd only seen one episode. But they use the Greedo scene from Star Wars, the Han shoots first scene, twice in this first episode, and I don't know if it was on purpose or not, and I hope it was, because at least then there was something going on there. The rating. So I think I decided that I was going to give it, or my methodology here, if I, at the end of the day, have all these problems with it, but I like it, I might occasionally enjoy watching it again, I'll give it a 5. 5 is the very bottom of my I like it pile. I didn't like this. Obviously, this wasn't the worst piece of shit ever made, so I can't give it a 1. And it wasn't I could make it through another episode if I had to, and it could keep me awake, I guess, sort of. If I could have it on the background and tune in with the gunshots. Like, it wasn't like just generally painful to watch. It just didn't add up to anything. So I don't think it's a 2. 4 is something I almost like, and I didn't almost. So I'm going with 3. This is a solid 3. So there you have it. Justified, the TV show. It gets a 3. Thanks for listening. I'm Uncle Wobbly, and I'll see you again.